Alex and Sarah's suburban home, nestled on the edge of a quiet forest, was always filled with warmth. Not just from the fireplace that crackled cozily in the living room on cool evenings, but from the genuine happiness of their family. The young couple, both in their early 30s, had poured their hearts into every board and every stone to create a true nest for themselves and their 5-year-old daughter, Lily. She was the center of their universe, small, energetic, with eyes that sparkled with curiosity and boundless love for the world. But the true heart of their home, its tireless guardian and a constant source of joy, was Buddy. A large, sturdy German shepherd with thick, almost black fur and intelligent, deep eyes that seemed to see right through you. He was 7 years old and had been with Alex and Sarah since they first got married. Buddy wasn't just a pet, he was a family member, an older brother to Lily, her faithful protector, and a partner in all her childhood antics. Every morning, Buddy was the first to wake Alex, gently nudging his hand with a wet nose, then impatiently whining by the door, hinting at their morning walk in the woods. He adored these runs. His powerful paws effortlessly navigated the forest trails, his black nose constantly sniffing out new scents. Upon returning, he'd always check on Lily, carefully lying down beside her bed, resting his big head on his paws, patiently waiting for her to wake up. Lily, in turn, simply adored Buddy. She could spend hours telling him her childhood secrets, reading picture books to him, and he, seemingly understanding everything, would listen attentively, sometimes sighing or twitching an ear. Buddy was her shadow. When she played in the garden, he sat nearby. When she rode her bike, he ran alongside. He even let her braid ribbons into his fur, put children's hats on him, and feed him his favorite apples from her hand. Despite Buddy's size, his movements around Lily were always incredibly careful and gentle, as if he sensed her fragility. Alex often watched this pair, feeling his heart swell with warmth. He knew Buddy wasn't just a dog, he was part of their family, its unseen guardian. The dog had an amazing ability to sense everyone's mood. He'd come and lay his head on Sarah's lap when she was tired after work, or bring Alex his favorite toy when he looked thoughtful. His loyalty was unconditional, his love boundless. This evening, like many others, the family gathered in the living room. Lily, already in her pajamas, sat on the rug, hugging Buddy, watching cartoons and stroking his soft fur. Alex read a book in his armchair, and Sarah finished up some work on her laptop, occasionally casting a tender glance at her loved ones. Outside, darkness had already fallen, the forest steeped in nocturnal silence, and only a gentle breeze rustled the treetops. The house was filled with peace, coziness, and an idyll that seemed unbreakable. No one could have imagined that this ordinary, peaceful night was about to turn into a true test where their lives would be at stake and that their faithful Buddy would prove to be their only hope for salvation. Night had fallen on the house, bringing with it a profound silence. Outside, only the occasional rustle of leaves could be heard, and inside, the rhythmic breathing of the sleeping family. Lily was asleep in her room, her small hands still clutching a soft toy. Sarah and Alex were soundly asleep in their bedroom, completely surrendered to the embrace of slumber after a long day. The house was warm and peaceful. But for Buddy, night was never a time for complete tranquility. His senses always remained on alert, even in sleep. Lying on his mat by the bedroom door, he dozed, occasionally perking an ear at every unfamiliar sound. And then, somewhere on the edge of his consciousness, something unusual emerged. At first, it was a barely perceptible, foreign smell. Not the familiar scent of the forest, not the aroma of the fireplace, but something acrid, bitter, slowly but steadily permeating the air. Buddy pricked up his ears, his nose twitching, trying to identify the source. He quietly lifted his head, his eyes open, but darkness reigned around him. The smell grew stronger, mixing with something that resembled warmth, but not the cozy warmth of the fireplace, rather a searing, menacing heat. His canine senses, thousands of times sharper than a human's, were already blaring in alarm. Buddy quietly rose to his paws. His powerful nose led him towards the source of the distress. He moved cautiously, almost silently, down the hallway. First, he headed towards the kitchen. It was quiet there, but the smell intensified. Then, instinctively, he turned towards the laundry room where an old dryer stood, one Alex had promised to check for a week now. It was from there that the most distinct, disturbing aroma emanated. Buddy carefully approached the laundry room door. Through the crack beneath the door, he noticed a faint, flickering light. It wasn't the glow of a light bulb, but a strange, orange radiance. His instincts screamed, danger. The smell of smoke became sharp, acrid, making his nose twitch and his eyes water. He heard a quiet crackling, growing louder with every passing second. Something was burning. He tried to scratch at the door, but it was closed. Buddy whined softly, then tried again, harder, but no one reacted. The house's nocturnal silence was broken only by the increasing crackle from behind the laundry room door. Smoke began to seep through every crevice, filling the hallway. Buddy turned and raced to his owner's bedroom. He jumped onto the bed and began to whine loudly and persistently, nudging Alex's face with his nose, then Sarah's, trying to wake them. This wasn't his usual whine for a walk, but a desperate, insistent plea. Alex mumbled something in his sleep, waving a hand, but Buddy didn't give up. He tugged at the blanket, then began to gently but persistently nip Alex's arm until he finally stirred. "Buddy, what is it? What happened?" Alex mumbled, finally opening his eyes. At that moment, he smelled it. The scent of smoke. Sharp, suffocating smoke that was already seeping into the bedroom. He immediately sat up. Sarah also woke, looking at the dog in surprise, then at Alex. "Lily!" Sarah cried, her voice filled with terror. The smoke was now clearly discernible, but they didn't yet grasp the full seriousness of the situation. Buddy, having ensured they were awake, darted to the bedroom door, then turned back to them, his eyes wide with panic, and a low, persistent bark echoed through the house like a warning. He looked at them, then at the hallway, then back at them again, as if saying, "Hurry. There's no time to lose." The smell of smoke was no longer subtle. It was thick, acrid, engulfing. When Alex finally registered what was happening, a cold, sharp panic seized him, immediately dispelling the last vestiges of sleep. He grabbed Sarah's hand. "Fire! Go, now!" Buddy was already by the bedroom door, his body tense, a low growl emanating from his chest filled with deep concern. He looked at them, then at the hallway, his dark eyes pleading desperately. Smoke, seeping from under the laundry room door, was already filling the hallway, creating terrifying, flickering shadows. Alex's first instinct was to rush to Lily. "Lily!" he cried, his voice cracking with terror. But Buddy wouldn't let him. As Alex took a step towards the hallway, the dog blocked his path, gently but firmly pushing him back, then nudged him towards the bedroom window. It was strange, but there was such clarity, such determination in Buddy's eyes, that Alex paused. "The window!" Sarah understood, her voice trembling. The smoke in the hallway was already too dense. The bedroom window was large enough, and though it was on the second floor, a sturdy oak tree grew beneath it, its branches offering a potential escape. It was a risky but the only obvious path to safety. Buddy darted to the window and began scratching at the glass as if urging them to hurry. Alex quickly threw it open. The smell of burning plastic and wood now filled the night air, and the quiet crackle had escalated into a loud roar, signaling the fire's escalating consumption. "Lily!" Sarah cried again, her voice filled with despair. They couldn't leave their child. And then Buddy displayed his true heroism. He didn't wait for Alex and Sarah to jump out. He did something that struck them to their core. The dog plunged into the smoke-filled hallway. They heard his desperate barks, fading deeper into the house, towards Lily's room. Every second felt like an eternity. The smoke grew thicker, and Alex was already coughing. "Buddy!" "No!" Alex yelled, but it was too late. A moment stretched into an eternity. Then, through the haze of smoke, they saw her, Lily's small figure, coughing but held tightly against Buddy's mighty side. The dog was carrying her, carefully but swiftly, towards the bedroom door where Alex and Sarah waited. His eyes blazed with resolve, despite the smoke irritating his eyes. He guided the little girl directly to them. "Buddy, my good boy," Sarah whispered, hugging her daughter, who immediately burrowed into her embrace. The fire was no longer just a crackle. It was exploding, making the windows throughout the house rattle. There was no time left. "Quick, out the window!" Alex commanded, his voice firm. He lifted Lily into his arms, then carefully handed her to Sarah, who was already standing on a sturdy oak branch ready to jump. Buddy circled at their feet, whining nervously, but his gaze was fixed on his humans. With Sarah and Lily safely on the ground, Alex turned to Buddy. "Come on, Buddy. Let's go." But the dog hesitated. He looked at Alex, then towards the living room where the old family photo album lay, the one irreplaceable item. Alex understood. It wasn't just an urge, but a deep awareness of its importance. In their initial panic, Alex had forgotten it. Buddy dashed into the living room, despite the rapidly growing flames. A few seconds later, he rushed back out, holding the worn but intact album in his jaws. His fur was slightly singed on his paws, and his breathing was heavy, but victory shone in his eyes. He brought it to Alex, gently laying the album at his feet. Alex snatched the album, then pulled Buddy close. "My hero," he whispered, hugging the dog tightly. Together, they jumped from the window, landing softly on the ground at the base of the oak. Just minutes later, the entire house was engulfed in flames. Tongues of fire greedily licked at the wooden walls, windows shattered with deafening crashes, and thick black smoke billowed into the night sky. The family stood a distance away, watching their home turn to ash. Tears streamed down Sarah's cheeks, but in her eyes, as in Alex's, there was not only the pain of loss, but also immense gratitude. Gratitude for their lives, for Lily, and for their faithful, indomitable buddy who had risked everything to save them. Morning arrived, bringing with it a bitter reality. In place of the cozy home that had once been filled with life and laughter, now stood only charred, smoking ruins, releasing their last wisps of acrid smoke into the sky. Walls had collapsed, the roof had caved in, leaving behind only blackened timbers and the distorted remains of their former life. The sense of loss was immense, almost physical. Sarah wept, clutching Lily, who, though too young to grasp the full tragedy, sensed her mother's distress. Alex stood beside them, his face frozen in shock, staring at what had once been their home. Buddy never left their side. He sat at Alex's feet, his head bowed, his tail wagging slightly as if he could feel their pain. His fur was lightly singed on his paws, and his nose was red from the smoke, but his eyes, as always, were filled with boundless devotion. There was no self-pity in his demeanor, only deep, silent support. He occasionally licked Alex's hand as if to comfort him, reminding him that, despite everything, they were together. The firefighters arrived quickly, but it was already too late. All they could do was extinguish the last smoldering embers and confirm the complete destruction of the house. Alex answered their questions, his voice sounding muffled as if through cotton. Every piece of charred wood, every twisted object, it was a memory that had burned away with the fire. However, the photo album Buddy had carried from the burning living room lay in Alex's bag, unharmed, a symbol of hope. This single rescued treasure was more precious to them than all the material possessions they had lost. The following days were tough. The family temporarily moved in with Alex's parents into a small apartment where they felt like strangers. Their entire routine was shattered. Lily missed her toys and her own room, often asking, "Where will Buddy sleep?" Buddy, in turn, also felt out of place. He was used to open spaces, to the forest, to moving freely. The apartment felt cramped. He often lay with his head on his paws, gazing longingly out the window. Yet, despite all the pain of loss, a new, even deeper gratitude grew among them. Every time they looked at Buddy, Sarah and Alex felt their hearts swell with love for him. They petted him, hugged him, thanked him countless times. For Lily, Buddy became an even greater hero. She told everyone about her superdog who had saved her from the fire. The bond between them became unbreakable, forged in the flames. As Alex and Sarah began to discuss their next steps, they faced a dilemma. Should they rebuild on the same spot? Should they look for a new home in the city? The financial and emotional difficulties seemed insurmountable. But every time they looked at Buddy, they realized that their lives with him were paramount. He wasn't just a dog, he was their guardian angel, their savior, and they would never forget his sacrifice. "We'll rebuild," Sarah said one evening as they sat, flipping through the salvaged photo album. Her voice was firm, though slightly trembling. "And we'll make it even better. For us. For Lily. And for Buddy." Alex hugged her. He knew she was right. This tragedy had taken their home, but it hadn't taken their hope, their love, and their loyalty. They were together, and that was what mattered most. They decided to rebuild the house on the same spot, but with new, safer technologies. It would be their symbol of resilience and indomitable spirit. And, of course, there would be a special place for Buddy, the best they could offer him. Almost a year had passed. Since the day the fire mercilessly consumed their home, months of hard work, bureaucratic hurdles, and, most importantly, unwavering faith had come and gone. Alex and Sarah, step by step, rebuilt their lives, starting from ashes but building on the sturdy foundation of their love and gratitude. They hired architects who designed a new house, even better, more modern, and, crucially, equipped with the latest fire safety systems. This wasn't just a house, it was their symbol of resilience. Construction moved swiftly. Thanks to the support of friends, relatives, and the insurance company, walls went up, the roof was covered, and the interior slowly filled with life. Every weekend, Alex and Sarah visited the site, watching the progress. Lily ran around, imagining where her new room would be, and Buddy, who had been an integral part of their lives this entire time, barked joyfully as if greeting every new block, every new board. For Buddy, this return to his territory was special. He could once again run freely through the forest, explore familiar trails, and feel like the true master of these grounds. He became even more attentive to the family, especially to Lily. His senses were so finely tuned that he could detect the slightest changes in the atmosphere, the smallest scent that hinted at trouble. He wasn't just a dog who had saved them, he was a guardian angel in fur, a constant reminder of the preciousness of life and the importance of every moment. And then came the day the new house was ready. It was bright, spacious, with large windows that let in plenty of sunlight and offered a magnificent view of the forest. The living room featured a new, modern fireplace, and all the wiring and systems had been updated to the highest safety standards. But perhaps the most important detail was Buddy's special place. In the living room, by the large window where he could watch the forest, they set up his own cozy corner with a soft bed and his favorite toys. It was their way of showing him how much he mattered. That evening, when the entire family gathered in their new living room, their emotions were overwhelming. The fireplace crackled cozily, creating a warm atmosphere. Lily sat on the rug, hugging Buddy, who lay contentedly beside her. Sarah and Alex sat on the couch, embracing, simply watching their daughter and their faithful friend. "Thank you, Buddy," Sarah whispered, her voice barely audible through tears. "Thank you for being ours." Alex stroked the dog's large head. "You're a hero, Buddy. We're here because of you." Buddy simply whined softly, licked Alex's hand, then rested his head on his paws, his eyes filled with boundless love. He didn't understand all their words, but he felt their emotions, the warmth, the gratitude, the love. The fire had taken their home, but it had given them something far more valuable. It had taught them to cherish every moment, every second spent together. It showed them that true treasures aren't possessions, but life, family, and boundless loyalty. Buddy, the faithful guardian of their hearth, became not just a symbol of their renewal, but a living reminder that even in the darkest times, there is always hope if you have those you love and those who love you. And their home, new, bright, and safe, was now not just a building, but a true sanctuary of loyalty and unbreakable love. Months turned into years. The new house truly came alive, filled with new laughter and joy. Lily grew, her childhood games becoming more complex, but Buddy remained her constant companion. He was by her side when she took her first steps in the new yard, when she learned to ride her bike on the forest trails, and later when she went to school for the first time, he'd escort her to the bus stop, patiently waiting for her return. Alex and Sarah's lives also returned to a familiar rhythm, but with a new understanding. Every moment spent in this house, every sunset over the forest, every family dinner was filled with deep gratitude. They knew that a home wasn't just walls, but the warmth they created together and the safety their devoted friend guarded. They started spending more time together, appreciating the small things that once seemed mundane. The fire, though a terrible tragedy, taught them to live more fully, more deeply. Buddy grew older. His fur became silver in places, his movements a little slower, and his sleep sounder. But his eyes remained as clear and full of love as ever. He still adored his morning walks, though he no longer ran as swiftly as before. Lily, now a teenager, often took him on leisurely strolls through the forest, talking to him about her school day and her dreams. Buddy listened, as always, attentively resting his big head on her lap as they sat by the stream. Most of all, he loved the evenings when the whole family gathered together. He'd take his honored place by the fireplace, allowing Alex to pet him and Sarah to gently scratch him behind the ear. He'd look at them, his humans, and his gaze conveyed deep contentment. He was their faithful guardian, their unwavering friend who was always there, through joy and sorrow. One evening, when Buddy was very old, he lay in his usual spot by the fireplace during a family movie night. He dozed peacefully at first, then his breathing grew quieter, calmer. Alex, sensing something unusual, leaned down to him. Buddy was sleeping peacefully, but his body was now still. He passed quietly, without pain, in his sleep, surrounded by the warmth of his family. The sorrow was immense. Lily cried, hugging his big head. Alex and Sarah stood nearby, their hearts broken, yet filled with boundless gratitude. They buried him at the edge of the forest, beneath the old oak tree that had once saved them from the fire. On his grave, they placed a small wooden marker with the inscription, "Buddy, our hero, our faithful friend and savior. Your memory lives forever." And though Buddy was no longer physically present, his presence was felt in the house. His spirit, his loyalty, his love remained with them forever. Whenever they recalled the fire, they remembered Buddy, his heroism that had given them a new life. He taught them that true loyalty knows no bounds and that the most precious treasures are not possessions, but those we love. Their home, rebuilt on the foundation of love and memory, continued to be a symbol of their unbreakable spirit and the quiet happiness guarded by the faithful dog. Buddy.